Let's jump into it. Brian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing tonight?
Very good, sir. Thank you very much for calling.
No, I appreciate you coming on. And the book for the audience it's available now on Amazon. Abair Road: The True Story. And Brian was he's a retired police officer, but he was a police officer at the time when this happened back in 1976. And Brian, would you kind of start from the beginning? Take us back to that night in 1976 and walk us into what you saw, what you experienced.
Okay, I've got to start out from the beginning, though. It starts the night before.
Of course.
My brother Paul and Marty Paddock, they were really good friends. They were going to go out and do some camping, but I was on duty, and actually I was working radar that night. And on William Street in Whitehall, I heard this vehicle coming hell-bent for leather, and I said, wow, here comes a ticket, And they knew where I was sitting. Well, I sat there quite a bit in a certain spot. But anyway, they pulled up, and these guys are so wound up and excited. And I mean, they're telling me something. They had just seen a monster out on Abair Road and blah, blah, blah. You got to come out. You got to come out. I said, I can't leave the village. I said, if I were in pursuit or something, yeah, I can leave the village. But I said, I can't leave. He said, well, you got to do something. He says, this is no joke. And I looked at him. I says, you guys smoking a little of that funny tobacco or drinking or what? No. I mean, these guys were wound up big time. So my dad had just gone off duty. He was a sergeant with Whitehall PD, and he had just gone off duty, just barely got home. And it was a little after midnight. And so I called my dad, and I said, well, what am I supposed to do? He said, well, you call the state police, and you call the sheriff's department, send them out, tell them I'll meet them out there. Well, in the meantime, Paul and Marty had went down to this old garage station they used to hang out at nighttime and picked up a couple of their buddies. Said, you want to see a monster, blah, 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 Petco station it was on Broadway. So they went out, and everything that had transpired with them. Of course, I wasn't there. So the next night, which was the 25th, it was a Tuesday night because it was the only night I had off. I worked 6 days a week on the PD, and I had a trooper. We call him Trooper Fox, a New York State Trooper. And hey, Brian, he says, you want to go out and see if we can see a Bigfoot? And he giggles, I said, sure. And this guy was short, looked like a 55-gallon drum, and he wasn't heavy. He was just muscular, the guy himself. And I probably was, 8 inches over his head. But I said, sure, I'll go out. I said, no problem. So it was after midnight when we headed out, because they come on duty around 11, and by the time he got ready to go. So we headed out. Here we go. And I'm starting to get the heebie-jeebies already. But anyway, we headed out and onto Abair Road. And the trooper, it's sort of like coming down a hill with an S-turn and a dip. Then it comes back onto a slight hill. And he stayed at the very top of the field, which had been mowed probably, 2 weeks prior to him being in the field. In other words, it'd be like an overgrown lawn, real short grass. And he was off the road probably 50, 60, 70 feet roughly. And the Pontney River runs east and west, half a mile from us. And from that, it's all heavy pines and hemlock and brush and so on and so forth. And he's up on the top hill in that field. So I went down to the bottom of the S-turn where it sort of comes back up on a hill, and there's a roadway that goes out into a field that hadn't been mowed at all that year for what reason I don't know. And I drove out in the field a good, 350, 400 feet, and I parked my car. And the first thing I did was take my dome light out of so I'd leave the door open and the light wouldn't be on, so on and so forth. And the state trooper and myself were on the CB radio, and we found a station on the CB radio that wasn't all a bunch of hubbub and so on and so forth. It was pretty quiet. But it was a nice, really warm, balmy August night. And the thing of it is, being out in those fields, I mean, I live in the country. You always hear katydids and crickets and tree frogs. You hear all kinds of stuff. Well, it was one of those nights. It was so dead silent. You could have heard a leaf fall, say, at 50 yards. But anyway, we were out there a good half hour, maybe 45 minutes. And I was in and out of the car using my spotlight. And so now I'm out beside my car and standing by the right fender on the driver's side, or left fender, excuse me. And me and Officer Fox were talking back and forth once in a while. You see it here. But anyway, we started hearing from where I was to roughly the hedgerow. along the field was probably, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 feet away, where the trooper was on the upper side of that same hedgerow. And he was within probably 50, 75 feet of it. And it comes from the Poltony River up, and it gets narrower and narrower as it gets to the road. It might be 20 feet wide when that same hedgerow gets to the road. And you could, every once in a while, you'd hear like a tree breaking, not a dead limb, but like a small tree being snapped or broken, or a limb being pulled down. And this went on for, I would say, 15, 20 minutes, and then it's dead quiet again. So the next thing I hear over the CB radio is the officer going, Brian, what the blank is it? What the blank? I'm getting the hell out of here. And you know what? He did. He come out of the field, hell bent for leather, and he was on duty, and he headed back towards Whitehall. He had to drive right by the same entrance of the field that I drove out in, and he headed back to Whitehall. So I'm sitting there and going, what the hell did he see? What the hell did he see? You know, and I'm scratching my head, and I get the spotlight, and I don't see a damn thing out in the field. And it's got to realize it's tall grass. And the field comes level, and then it comes up a hill roughly 40, I would guess 40 feet. And that's where I'm sitting, is on top of the hill, but back a little bit. And next thing I know, I start hearing this whooshing noise. And the way I've always described it as like a person's thighs rubbing together that wears corduroy pants. You'd hear a whoosh, whoosh. That's what I could hear. Like I said, it was dead silent that night, and you could hear a lot, or a long ways. And I never even thought about taking a spotlight and putting it up. But I'm in between my door and the car, because my door is wide open. I got my handgun out, and I got the spotlight in my left hand, and it would stop and start. And right down the center of that field was like a little teeny weeny itsy bitsy brook that was sort of partially dried up, but there were cattails here and there. And then I heard the funny noise, like something walking through cattails or short brush. And within a couple of minutes, something said, turn your light on. And I did, and I was shining it right across the passenger's side of the car, say up where the headlight and the grill come together. And oh my God, here it was, a creature. I'm covered with goosebumps now.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And I'm looking at something that don't exist, yet there it is right in front of you. And at that second, I had so many thoughts go through my mind, back from being a child and jobs I had done, things I had done. I mean, you had a bazillion thoughts in a split second. And when I hit this thing with the spotlight, it was roughly no more than 35 feet away from me. And it was coming right straight towards that front side of the car. It brought its hands up, not paws, hands. I could differentiate between a paw and a hand because you could see the outline of the fingers. And this thing had round, I always say, mayonnaise jar cover size eyes in diameter. And it brought its hands up and covered its face and let out such a deep, deep, guttural blast of, it'd be like a difference between my voice and a woman's voice, the deep tone.
Yeah.
That kind of a blast. And it was so intense that it'd be like me blowing a tuba in your face. The what do you call it? Reverberation or whatever. You could feel the vibration of that voice at roughly 30 feet. And the longevity of the holler, it would take 2 men, 3 men, or 3 people, period, with a lung capacity, with all their lung capacity in a line to do that one growl or whatever you want to call it. And the volume was outrageous. And in that same instance, when it let that out, all I could figure is that the bright light of the 200,000 candle power spotlight, one of the old spotlights back then in the 70s, if it hurt its eyes or what, I don't know. But as I'm standing there looking at it, I'm getting, it's like sort of, how would you say it? Like it's talking to me telepathically, I guess you could say. The thoughts that were going through my head about it and me at that instant was like, I did not feel threatened. It was like, get the hell out of here and leave us alone. And when I say us, I don't say me, leave us alone. But anyway, it turned to its left, and that's when I could see It's just like looking at an orangutan on any movie, how the hair hung down on the arms. It turned to its left, and then that's when I could see the back of it. And you could see the muscular part of it from the neck, what would be the neck, but it was like a head set on shoulders. And it had long hair on the head, dark. This was a dark red, almost black. It wasn't jet black. And you could see the muscular outline of the back. I could see the buttocks, the muscular build of the muscle, because the hair on the back was a lot thinner than the front or the side. And you could see leaf debris, like twigs and stuff like this thing was maybe laying, because this area down along the Pontly River is all clay. And whether it was nesting, bedding, whatever you want to call it down there before it came up through, I don't know. But as it's walking away, the strides on it were over 6 feet. And it went kitty corner to where it came from, where the fence line runs from west, south to north. And then the other fence runs east to west. It went into that corner, which we found out a few days later. There was a gateway there from the farmer, probably back years ago when they logged it. And when it got to that corner, this thing turned around, and I still got the spotlight on it. I'm out of the car completely now. And it let out such 3 big guttural groans, but not as bad as confronting it point blank. It was like the difference between it trying to scare me to get the hell out of there and it going down there. The volume was less, a little bit shorter in longevity. And I just got the impression, get the hell out of here. It'll leave us alone. And poof, it's gone into the woods. My encounter probably lasted 3.5, 4 minutes altogether. Because this thing with the strides went across that field like a track runner. And it was walking. This thing never ran. This thing never dropped down onto all fours. It was not a bear. And I sat in the car for 15, 20 minutes just collecting my thoughts. And at the same time, I still keep checking the field to see if there's anything else there, anything coming. And put it this way, if there'd have been 2 of them to come in behind me, if it wanted me, it had me. Even this creature, if it wanted me, it probably had me, because I had the hammer pulled back, 357. I had what they call barrel loads in it, and they were hollow points. I mean, it would have made a hole from hell. And from that point on, I said, "Oh my God, what just happened?" My mind is all over the place. So I finally left the spot, and I head back to Whitehall. And what used to be the Silver Diner don't even exist anymore in Whitehall, but I knew the cops had a certain spot in the back where we hang out. And I walk, I'll be damned, there's the trooper's car. So I walk into the diner, and he's in the back room, and he's got a cup of coffee, and he's shaking. Now, this is a good half hour since my encounter, my time spent there, since the troopers left. And he's down there, he's shaking like a leaf, trying to drink his coffee, and the cup's wiggling, wobbling, and blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, Officer Fox. And he looks up at me. I said, "What did you see?" "What did you see?" "I didn't see nothing." I said, "What did you see?" He said, "I didn't see nothing." And he's looking at me. You could tell by looking in his eyes. He was scared, just like I was. Scared like a kid seeing a boogeyman? No, but you're looking at something that don't exist, and yet there it is right in front of you. What the hell are you going to do with that thought? At that instant, what are you going to do? And I've been asked, why didn't I shoot it? Because I didn't feel threatened. Was it a male or female? Because I've been asked, you see breasts? Did you see testicles? I wasn't looking for that stuff. I'm looking at something that don't exist, and yet there it is right in front of me. Is it alien? Is it this? Is it that? I have no idea. And to this day, I have no idea. And I never said it was Bigfoot. But I'll tell you what it wasn't. But ever since I've seen different videos of creatures that have been seen, so on and so forth, this, on the book, cover of the book, is more or less like exactly what I saw, except for there's, I could sit down and tell you what's not right. But the guy did a really good job, and we were in a time crunch. But all I know is I saw something that supposedly don't exist, and I felt, at the time, very fortunate. And after that, with the reporters, the hoaxers, the fun being made of me, my family, so on and so forth, I just got to the point, I kept my mouth shut for the longest time.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And And then they started making, Brian, would you like to do a movie? Blah, blah, blah. Well, the first movie that was made, and I'll mention no names, the first one I made was with an outfit, and they were out of California, and there were one of them in particular is a world-renowned investigator. I know he's into this kind of stuff, young man, and another woman from out in the state of Washington, I believe. But I sat there, and I had the original property where we found the tracks. This was within a week. I found one of the best tracks I've ever seen in my life, but where it was going to go down a clay bank. It's a steep bank, and it's clay, like I said, down there, and you got a lot of pines and all that stuff, and it's slippery. Because myself and my nephew went down there. We did find a good track, and what it was from, say, back, maybe 5-6 inches in front of the heel, from that point up, the toes where it caught the edge of the bank, and the toes and that part of the foot were perfect. So we cast it, of course, not knowing crap about casting. We should have put something in it to help hold the stuff together. Well, that cast was long gone because it was broken. And you could see a path going down towards the Potney River that looked like a moose went through there. And you'd see where something had slid down the bank here and there, caught its footing, grabbed trees to stop itself, and goes into the Potney River, crossed, and right into Vermont State. And right then and there, I mean, we had Glenn LaRose, who's a really, really good friend of mine. He was a deputy sheriff for over 30 years. He got a really, really good cast, and I don't know who ended up with those casts, but he did several investigations himself. He was a true believer. And I had talked to my dad, I think it was Wednesday, about it. He says, Brian, he said, whatever that was, he said, we all saw the same thing. He says, 2 troopers, 2 deputy sheriffs, myself. He said, whatever it is does not belong here. It's not from here. He said, bear? Hell no. He said, you show me a bear that's got legs that long, that can walk like a human, step over a fence that's over 4 foot high, just step over it and go into the brush. He said, and I'll tell you, okay, I saw a bear. But one thing led to another, and I says, the first movie that was made, I'm sitting there, and the facts that I'm trying to give them, they want nothing to do with it. I had the original spot where the sighting took place set up so they could bring all their equipment, set it up there. No, we went to another location, and just off of Route 4. I said, why not over there? Are these guys scared? Are they afraid they're actually going to see something? Because this is out in the boonies. And I had it all set up with the landowner. Oh, yeah, no problem. Just don't get stuck and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sitting there watching a movie being made. It was just like watching a cartoon.
Yeah.
It was just like watching a cartoon. And even the Monsters of the North Woods book, there's so much fabrication in that book. And it has nothing to do with the original writer, and that's Bill Brand. There's other people involved in that. Let me put it to you like this, Wes. How can you interview somebody and word for word is on the tape recorder, and you read, say, the first sentence or say the first paragraph, and it sounds entirely different from what's on the tape recorder? There were words put in there that shouldn't be in there. They had my father as a chief of police, a deputy sheriff. They had me as a deputy sheriff, and it never happened. And then another movie that was made, they had the Whitehall PD showing up out there on Abair Road, red lights and siren blaring. Never happened. I was off duty. I had my own patrol car, or my own car. The only one out there was a state trooper. He didn't show up with red lights and stuff going. Even the night of the initial call, the sheriffs and stuff did not pull in with red lights and sirens going. Everybody drove out there like normal people. And it's just that it's gotten so completely out of whack. The true story. Now, Seth Breedlove did a movie, and he did a very good job, just like Dr. Benedict, God bless his soul, he passed away. He did a fabulous movie. It was facts. It was stuff that I told him, this is the facts, the way it happened, and it wasn't all distorted and out of whack, like 90% of the other stuff that's out there. And now I'm talking with you about this, and I mean, I've done other talk shows where you get the pranksters calling you, what kind of stuff are you smoking or shooting? I want some of that stuff. It's.
Yeah, it gets old.
I'll put it this way: I'm more into it now, Wes, than I was before. Because me and my wife go out when we can, and it was just last summer, right up here where I live. I had 2 vocalizations, and it was the prime time when they sort of like travel through this area from Hubbardton, Vermont, Bomazine, Vermont, clear down the valley through East Bay and stuff, Carver's Falls, over into Lake George, the northwest part of Whitehall. We've got a map that's got everything for vocalizations, tracks found, sightings, and stuff we have found. And I'll tell you, a lot of people would kill to have our map, but they're not going to get their hands on it. They can look at it, but they can't take a picture of it.
Yeah.
One of those kind of deals.
No, and it's frustrating that it's still treated like a joke. You have so many people that have seen it, and it makes me wonder why they're covering it up. But, we can come back to that. Going back to your TV thing, that's why I'm not a big fan. I've met so many times. I mean, I could have had a TV show probably 3 or 4 times over by now. The only thing I don't like is, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, Hollywood, they want to take it and they want to twist it. But if they just told the story of what happened, it's more fascinating than their twisting of the story. The actual story is more fascinating. And I never understood that. I don't know if it's a mindset that they have. Well, let's make this better. Well, no, leave it alone. It's perfect the way it is.
Right.
And I understand you not wanting to shoot too, Brian. I mean, you don't shoot in confusion. Generally, you don't want to shoot when you're afraid. You want to shoot when you have a presence of mind to actually take a shot. And in a situation like this, I can imagine the confusion of just seeing this thing. And compared to you, how big do you think it was, Brian? I mean, as far as like how tall and how much do you think it weighed?
I've been asked that. How did you guesstimate its height? Well, let me put it to you like this. I told you where the trooper was sitting, and I told you where I was sitting. And I'm a pretty good guesstimator of weight, and I would say 350, 400, 450 pounds. And height-wise, that's easy. When I stood up in that field, the grass was up to my hips. When it was in the field, the grass was up to its kneecaps. There's another 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet on top of it, and I'm 6'1". That's how I guesstimated the height right there. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or buts about it. The thing was 7.5 to 8 foot tall.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think the government's covering this up? I mean, obviously, I don't know if you feel like they are or not. I feel like they are.
There's so many cover-ups. I mean, it's with this, I have my own theory. Me and my wife have our own theory, so on and so forth. And I'll tell you a few of them there shortly. But anyway, it's just like the UFOs and everything else. Your astronauts come back and say what they saw. You got pilots that fly high altitudes, jet fighters. I mean, this goes way back with things that are coming out of the ocean, pictures that have been taken. That's this. Why do they want to cover it up? They're worried about worldwide fear and mass hysteria, so on and so forth. People flipping up. That's all I can figure. But I personally believe we've been cooperating with, and they are cooperating with us for years. I do believe, like with the Roswell incident, I believe they really do have bodies. I mean, some of our technology came so quick, and like they say now, is that, because it comes from aliens. When you got pilots that are deterred from a certain strip of airspace because of, like that one in particular I saw, where there was 6 or 7 ships, and they watched them land right on this airstrip out in the Midwest, out in Nevada, I guess it was, and come on, this is 2017. This is the caveman days. That's the way I look at it. And these things have been here for a long time. They go way back in history with the Indians reporting them and the British and this one, that one, and everybody else. Were they all hallucinating? Were they on drugs? What are you going to do? What can you say? Your guess is as good as mine. The cover-ups with the government. They do it all the time.
Yeah, it's frustrating, though. You being, I know you're a retired police officer, but even a retired police officer, your good word could put someone in jail, especially being a current police officer. Your good word's good enough to throw someone in jail. Exactly. Yet when you see Bigfoot, why is it that now all of a sudden you're crazy? When a week prior to that, you could have, put anyone in jail based on your good word. And then you see Bigfoot and all of a sudden you're crazy. Well, you're not as crazy. I mean, I've had so many law enforcement officers run into them, especially people that go out to these properties for a quote unquote prowler. And I've talked to a lot of cops that were like, hey, listen, that wasn't a bear and that wasn't a human prowler. There was something else going on out there. So you hear it all the time. What do you think Bigfoot is, or Sasquatch is, Brian? I mean, you're within 30 feet of this thing. If someone were to ask you, what do you think that Sasquatch is, what would you say to them?
I don't think they're from here. That's a lot of people don't want to hear that, but Don Keating, when I did his talk show out in Ohio, he fortunately mentioned, sort of like the same way you just brought that up, whether they be from some other dimension, some other world, but how you can find tracks one after another in the snow. I understand snow blowing and stuff, but okay, the snow blew there. Why didn't it blow back there? Excuse me, I got a cough. But I was asked, did it look more ape, monkey-like, or human-like? To me, a mixture. Human features in the sense of the hands, the arms. It's just a hell of a lot bigger. Was it something that come out of a zoo or no? No, there's too many of these things, or too many reports, and you're getting reports now out of states that didn't even have reports to start with. These things we've got it down as a migration route. And where do they go from point A to point B? I have no idea. And I think maybe if 20 people talk to me today, 18 of them would be hunters and ask me, well, why haven't I seen one? Blah, blah, blah. I've been in the woods for 40 years. So have I. And I said, the point being, I thought I was a lucky man until I saw what I saw. And then I had to take all the harassment that I took for years until certain organizations found ways of making money at it. And now it's, oh my God, there's believers all over the place. And being up here, because me and my wife only live, I can be where the sighting was in 6 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a mountain besides my house, and that's where I had the vocalization there and behind my sister-in-law's house, which is just barely up the road from me. I can look at her front door. There's still stuff that goes on. We log, put it this way, we log everything now, Wes. The time, the date, the weather, we log it all right here at my house, me and my wife, because my wife is into this big time. And I say, we could sit down, we've talked about it, and write another book just on the investigations we did and how close we actually were to one in broad daylight up in the Adirondacks, where the water, where it walked across like a dry creek bed, where the water was still running back into the track.
Wow, that's really close.
It's crazy. And we, out of that area alone, we probably had, I want to say, 15, 20 reports in the last 10 years. I've had state troopers from Vermont. I've had state troopers from New York show up right here in my dooryard, telling me something they had seen right here in this neighborhood. You can say what you want to say, but people are actually keeping their eyes open. And you don't have to be a police officer to be believed. Some people have just, what kind of education you got? Hey, everybody's got eyes. Everybody's got a mind. I mean, we debunk a lot of reports, which is easy to do in some of these cases. But some we just can't, especially when you go in, you find, say, 2, 3, 4 tracks, and you can only get a cast of 1 or 2. You show me any man on the face of this earth that's can walk up a bank with almost a 7-foot between the front of the left foot to the heel of the right foot, walking up a hill, probably on not quite a 45, maybe, less. And, that's a bear. No. Bear going up the hill, just like a bear, you'll see their claw marks. These had no claw marks at all. And we got one cast. We got one cast out of that was pretty good. You could definitely define the shape of the foot, the heel, the arch, and the toes. And the next cast up, you couldn't because it was on a side bank. And it's tough because it was in the hemlocks, and you got all them hemlock needles on the ground and blah, 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 blah. But we have casts that are excellent. We got one of the best ones now I've seen in years. That was by one of our members who's out the western part of New York State now. And we got this on the west side of Lake George, up in the mountains, a little ways away. We don't like to give away our locations. This is one of the best tracks I've ever seen. And this is out in the sticks, out in the boonies, and there's a few people that live on the side of the mountain, but this is back in the hills.
Yeah, I envy you.
But,
being being not an ex-police, be a retired police officer, I envy you. It's because usually a cop won't tell you anything, but they'll tell another cop what they've seen. It's kind of a weird brotherhood to where, and I've had lots of cops on the show. I don't want to say everyone's like that, but some people who keep quiet, if they find out, you're in law enforcement, well, let me tell you, and so I would imagine you get a lot of probably police officers telling you what they've seen. And I know a lot of people were seeing this creature around Whitehall at that time. I mean, you mentioned your dad, other police officers, other witnesses. Why do you think there was such a rash of sightings at that time? Do you think it was just passing through? Why do you think the creatures were there?
Well, what used to be a lot of farmland out there, like the field that we had seen this in, it was just, you have to know where I live. It's like what they call East Bay, is where the Potney River ends at the Carvers Falls Dam, and from that point on, it's called East Bay, which ends up into Lake Champlain and flows north. And everything between where we were, where we had our sighting, to Route 22 north out of Whitehall is just almost totally wilderness. But now there's all kinds of houses built out there. There's 1, 2, 3 in that field where I had my sighting. Nothing across the road where my brother and the cops, the other cops and stuff that were involved, had their sighting. But why they're here, your guess is as good as mine. Because it wasn't just in 76. You got to go back 2 or 3 years when they started being seen, but nobody said anything. I know guys I'm 66. I know a guy that's in his 80s and his son is in his 50s. I know 3, 4 other couples that live up here now that saw stuff that they didn't even want to talk about it. But since all this has came out, they've come and talked about things that they've seen between Abair Road incident to my house, which in a straight line, like I said, I can be there in 6 minutes. And where this thing come across the road in front of this one couple is stepped over a fence that's roughly 4.5 foot tall, just stepped over it. And in 4 steps was completely across the road in the field on the other side. Like I said, I had a state trooper, and I can't mention his name, but I'll tell you, this guy I'm 6'1". I had to look up to see his face, pulled into my yard, and I said, oh my God, what did I do? And he gets out, he's covering his name up on his, this was 2 years ago in June. And he says, I looked at him, I said, can I help you? No, but I can help you. I said, what's that? He says, he pointed at the sign on the side of my truck. We got a big magnet that's got a Sasquatch on it. Northern Sasquatch Research Society is what it says. But anyway, he says, no. He pointed at the sign, but I can help you. I says, what did you see? And this was the night before. Him and one of his partners, both in separate cars, had to go north of Whitehall to back up the troopers up there with a domestic dispute involving weapons. So if I remember right, he said around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're coming back towards Whitehall. And on the other side of the South Bay Bridge, he says, you know where Pipe Brook Road is? Oh, yeah. He said, well, I'm coming down. He said, Brian, I just did a double take. And he said, I come on the binders. And he said, here's something just crossed the road in front of me. He said, roughly 50 feet, 75 feet. He said it was freaking huge, covered with hair, a little bit slumped over, arms swinging, and went down into the field, went out in the field a ways. He said, just stopped and turned around. And he said, I stopped. He said, I've got my red lights on now. And he said, my headlights on high beam, looking at this thing. And he said, I radioed my partner. He says, take your time coming around the corner down by Pipe Brook Road. He said, you'll see me. He said, you got to stop and see what I'm looking at. And his partner comes down. He pulls his car around on an angle where he's shooting out in the field. They watch this thing go all the way across the field. And it goes down into a bank, into a backwash, like a marsh. Cattails are about 5 feet tall. Goes across maybe 50 yards. Goes up a steep bank up into towards Lake George in that direction anyway. And this guy was truly honest. He said, I'm from down south originally, down around New York City. And he said, I thought this was just a bunch of hooey, but he said, I know what I saw. And he said, very, very similar to the picture that's on your, And he said, well, I said, well, I'll go out, I'll check it out. Well, the next day I had permission, I know the people anyway. He said, yeah, go ahead, take a walk. Couldn't find anything in the field because the field had been mowed. It was, brown grass, so on and so forth. I get to the bank, and you swear to God, an elephant or a water buffalo had gone down the bank, across through the cattails, up there to find the track. Almost impossible. You could tell something had went there, but that was it. Now here's 2 other, and of course they wouldn't fill out a report. They wouldn't let me use their names. I said, I just want it documented that another. Well, you can say a trooper, but he said, don't use my name. And we get a lot of this. And my son, about a year before that, he came home from work. He was living next door, and he woke me up 2:30 in the morning. He said, Dad, you got to hear what I'm hearing. I said, all right, Brian. I said, I'll be right up. He's parked in the driveway. And I'm sitting out there. It was late winter, early spring. Everything thawed during the day, froze at night. We're sitting there, and I heard this vocalization from hell. But it was a high-pitched, long one. And for the closest house with a dog in a straight line is roughly 3/4 of a mile away. That dog was going crazy. And I used to work for this guy pruning his apple trees. So I said, when we heard that vocalization, I said, Brian, we got to head over towards Polino's old place there, over to Spardella's. I said, we got to head over there and check this out. I said, that's where it's headed, down towards the Polino River. So we get over there. It's a straight stretch. And it's an old farm, but this guy has rebuilt everything. He's got a sugar house, the whole 9 yards. Well, as we get out of the car, there's another. And his dog is out all night. It's a Labrador Retriever. He barks at everybody and everything. The dog started to bark. And because I got the spotlight, I'm spotlighting the apple orchard, the fields, and everything else. This dog started barking. This thing let out another vocalization from hell. And that dog all you could hear him was like, whine and shut up. He never said another word. And we stayed there for a good 5-10 minutes. And we never heard anything else. Where it went, I have no idea. Like I said, so the next day, I go up and behind my sister-in-law's place where it sounded like it was up in that direction. And I found... me and my son found one good track that's in the ice, and it was the size of my foot plus that and maybe another half. And you could see the outline of the foot. You could see parts of the toes. As I went farther, and the thing was, it was on a deer trail, and you could see the deer tracks frozen here and there in the snow where it had melted and frozen. It was like ice. And I found, I had the picture on my phone, a very immature. Now, you explain to me who would be barefoot back in the woods, completely barefoot, leaving human tracks in the wintertime or, when it's cold like that. I found I think was a juvenile Sasquatch track. And I showed my wife, and she was, wow, where'd you find that? I said, right up behind Eileen's house. She goes, really? And I said, yeah, it was headed right up the deer trail behind the next door neighbor's place, and where it went to from there, because we lost it, because then you started getting spots where it was just bare ground, frozen. But I, in my own mind, was thinking, well, maybe this thing that we heard was hollering to the juvenile, come this way, I'm over here, whatever the case may be. But that's just two of many, many reports from forest rangers, other troopers, sheriff's departments, federal employees. Like I said, we could write another book just on the reports we've had, investigations we've done.
Yeah, no, and there's more and more people are seeing them. I think it's becoming more and more popular. It's becoming more and more okay to talk about it. But I truly think more and more people are seeing these things. I don't know if their population is growing or what's going on, but I think definitely more and more people are seeing them. One question I wanted to ask you was about your encounter. You had mentioned you got the feeling almost in your mind, like, leave us alone. Do you think that was something that was being projected to you? Or do you think in your mind you were thinking, I'm going to leave this thing alone and I'm going to get the hell out of here?
No, I think it was something that was projected to me. And I'll give you a good response to that in the sense that when Seth Breedlove did his show here in Whitehall at the Whitehall Armory there was a show, I forget the nationality of this show, Indian shaman, but he come over and touched the track. It wasn't the track from that whole incident. This is another track. He said he had his hands on it, and he said, this is a female. And he said, I want you to know they're not here to hurt us or harm us. They're here to help us. That's what he told me. And my wife was standing right there, and she went outside and talked to him for quite a while. And, he's another one that goes back in his own history, back in his tribe and everything else. How these things have been logged, and like Philip Skeen, there, founder of Whitehall or whatever the case may be, they were logged in the books. The big hairy man, all this stuff, the very similar creatures. Whether this be a pathway, you can throw all kinds of scientific stuff into it. Whether it be another dimension somewhere to the northeast of us, or where these things come from. But there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people that were my age back when I had my sighting, that are my age or older, will tell you of things they've seen and stuff they just couldn't talk about back then because you'd have been in a loony bin.
Yeah.
And now a lot of them will come forward. I'll sit down and talk with anyone that's had an experience, and it really helps to talk with someone else that's had an experience, the feelings that you have that you didn't even know you had. And it's outrageous. It's truly outrageous. Right to this day, I said this back in 76, and here it is in 2018. I can relive this thing over and over and over again. But one of the biggest things is how they fabricate stuff into the story and take stuff out that's pertinent to the whole incident and put in what they want. That's one of the main reasons my wife sat down and wrote the book. She said, it's about time I wrote a book for you. And she did, in my book, a very, very good job. She really did.
Yeah, and I hope people get it. It's Abair Road, The True Story. And if you go to Amazon, again, it's spelled Abair, Abair Road, The True Story. And I wanted to ask you, Brian, so if someone picks up this book, what will they get from it? What will they walk away from reading this?
Well, it's the truth. It's right from the heart, from me, from my total story. There's no fabrication. There's nothing. It's how it happened and so on and so forth. There's no words have been changed except for the ones you have to use the funny numbers for, but the letters. But I hope they get. Not everybody that's had an encounter is crazy. That fact, I had no reason whatsoever to fabricate anything, to lie, I'm just reporting what I saw. And it's about time the truth, that's why it's called The True Story. It's nothing anybody else has done or added to or taken from. It's our story, my story. I think most people that read the book will understand they got to put my shoe on their foot. You know, and he says, and one of the main questions, why didn't you shoot? Why didn't you shoot? I didn't. I had, it was in my, like you said, something's telling me I'm not here to hurt you, so on and so forth. And I think if it wanted to, it could have, because these things are, believe it or not, are stealth-like as far as movement goes. A lot of people don't realize, they think they're dumb creatures, blah, blah, blah. No, these things are a lot smarter than anybody gives them credit for. And these people go out and put out night vision cameras and all this stuff. Myself and my wife, we both think, we've thrown this at other people. Some believe, some don't. I think telepathically, let alone, they sense that there's an impulse or something of some kind in these cameras that goes out, and this thing senses it. That's why they're usually, anything you get, they're on the move. Whatever it is on the move that's in front of that camera. Yeah, because this thing instantly feels something that's not right and it's on the move. Most of them, I think, just avoid them. You can put out all the cameras you want, like up here in my neck of the woods. You're looking at a big buck every night out in a certain field. You shoot 100 photographs. Where the hell's the deer? He's not on the camera. There's where I saw him. Well, the deer's coming up the trail a little farther and coming out the field that way. You can get 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But this book alone, I think they will more or less relive the whole incident of what I felt, what I was going through, and to this day, what I have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other people that have had sightings, and it is. You have stuff you have to deal with every day. You really do.
Yeah, it leaves you definitely with demons to deal with, especially after you've seen one of these things. And that's a hard thing for people to understand, I guess, until you've seen one. It's really hard to understand that, but it does leave you with demons. And I mean that like life demons. I don't mean like spirit demons.
No.
But, and it does haunt you. It definitely does haunt you. I mean, it never really goes away. It's something that stays with you your whole life. And, I'm glad that you had the courage to come forward on this, Brian, being a police officer and talk, I know you're a retired police officer now, but, just being in law enforcement and having the courage to come out. It takes a huge set of nuts to come out and talk about this, being in that position, because it harms your livelihood. There's nothing really positive that comes out from talking about this, but we have to, because people are seeing it, people are experiencing it, and it is affecting people. And so we have to talk about it, but it's not, I wouldn't say necessarily a positive thing. I would say for me, the only thing really positive that came out was, for a moment, I would stop and go, well, what else is real? Maybe aliens aren't a joke. Maybe that's real. Maybe this is real. Maybe that's real. And then you start looking into other things. It kind of opens your mind to to look into other things, other mysteries, and go, well, maybe this isn't all nonsense. Maybe, hell, I saw, upright half man, half monkey. So maybe this guy, what he saw is I'm talking about aliens or whatever. It just kind of opened your mind to accept maybe what people are telling you what they saw. Maybe they're not as nutty as you first thought,
Right. And one of the facts too is, be honest with you, is I'm going to give you a good one. This is the way my mom put it to me. This is bad because she was, of course, my father talked to her a lot more than he talked to anybody else about this whole incident. And my mom says, Ryan, she said, back when we were kids, we lived by Dick Tracy and this one and that one. He said, and there was one about outer space stuff, spaceships that flying, and we're all sitting there going, yeah, right. And different little things in the comic books. We're on the moon. Oh, yeah, right. She said, looks at it. She goes, Brian, we've been there, done that. You can talk into your wristwatch now. You've got cell phones. You've got computers. You've got this. You've got that. She said, been there, done that. And back when we were kids, what you're experiencing now, no way. And then she looked at me. She says, yep, been there, done that. Of course, my mom's long gone, but I saw her point. Don't disbelieve, because a lot of times what you see in the movies this week, in 2 years, it's happening.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And for the audience out there, again, it's Abair Road, The True Story. Go pick it up on Amazon. Is there any other place to get it besides Amazon, Brian?
No, it's just Amazon, and we are, like I said, we're going to have book signings. The Big Apple Diner that is mentioned in the book. If you read the book, you saw about the Big Apple Diner on Route 4. We're going to have a book signing there, and a lot of people come in just to, because I go there a lot. I work just on the road. I work in an apple orchard now, and I'm their maintenance man, so on and so forth, and I drink coffee there. And me and my wife go to dinner once in a while, but we're going to have a book signing at that place. And like I said, we've got one out in Johnstown, New York, next month. And the only place I know that we can get it is if it's on Amazon. Otherwise, they'd have to send me a check so I could send them a copy with their address, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I hope people go out there and get it. Abair Road, The True Story. Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I really, really, truly, Wes, appreciate you calling and letting me do this, because it's one of those God sets. You had your own encounter, so you know what you got to deal with, right?
Absolutely.
I truly appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you, sir. And next up on the show, I want to welcome Greg. Greg, thanks for coming on.
Oh man, it's not used to be on the show or anything, but it's nice to visit with you. It'll help me a lot if it's just like you and me talking like yesterday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you got like an open line and something, as far as I'm concerned, it's just you and me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And take your time, because I know this was a very difficult for you to retell, and I know you feel guilt, and I personally don't think you should feel guilty for anything. But for the audience, would you walk us into it, Greg? Now, this happened in Texas back in, was it 78 or 79?
It's 79, man.
79.
Yeah, and that's real gentlemanly of you. It really is, because I know you're a nice person, but
yeah, take your time and just kind of walk us into it.
No. Here's the what, man. There's nothing good that's going to come up. There's just nothing good to it. There's nothing good about it. It's just bad and bad. It's bad, man. And you don't have to use this, but like decade after decade after decade, like it's in a box and it's compartmentalized and it's put away, and after the last, I don't know, maybe a year or so, I was like, okay, Greg. When I texted you, when I reached out to you the first time, I emailed you, I was in the newspaper a month before this happened, and I sent it to you, and I was wrestling with it for a while, but I was like, Greg, this had to have happened for a reason. I mean, I was 10 years old. There's 5 of us there, my friends. But it had to have happened for a reason, and maybe it's now because I think you hit a point, most people probably do, when you got more in the rear view than out the front window of your life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm ready, this thing to take the dirt net with me. I'm too scared to get cremated and burned up. I feel like I'd feel it. But I scratched the scab off because I feel like someone within the sound of our voice, Wes, is going to hear something one thing, and I think it's going to help one person.
Yeah, no, I hope it does. And as you talk, Greg, can you be cautious of that mic? Because if it moves around on your coat or anything.
Oh, well, it's in my hand. Can
Oh,
I
is it
put
okay?
It down?
Yeah,
I was just holding it. I don't know what to do. I'm just on the phone. I put it down, so if it shouldn't move anymore.
Okay.
You can cut that out, dude. And if I ramble, if I get scared, because actually I'm
That's
frightened.
all right. It's all right. Take your time and just kind of
do what you do. I'm sorry. I don't mean it to be a burden to you.
No. It's no burden at all. It's no burden at all. And
Okay,
when I get down there to Texas, we'll have drinks over the,
No, you're crazy. Don't come to Texas. I'm not kidding. That's something I don't understand. Like, why would I'm going to tell you, but why would someone go find something that they can fit 3 of their foot into one thing and then follow it?
Yeah, it's a good point.
You're going to follow it till the trail runs out? And what are you going to do then? What if it's cold and it's pissed off because its feet hurt because it doesn't have shoes?
Yeah.
It's going to turn around? It'll eat you, man. What if it's pissed off? What if you can't see it? I don't know. I don't know all the answers. And the more, I don't even want to look into it, but I just know that I think there's a danger.
Well,
and it's in the woods because I've seen it.
Well, take us back.
I think people are insane, man. Why? Like, don't come to Texas, man. I mean, I like you and you're a gentleman, and I know you're trying to alleviate some of my guilt. And this is a terrible idea, Wes. I mean, this is bad, but it's not bad because, Sir Greg, why do this? I woke up, I don't know if the timestamp or how this stuff works. I'm not on Facebook. I don't have a page. I'm not on social media. I'm not an extrovert. I'm more of like a circle the wagons kind of a fella. I just want to be a dad. I got 3 kids. I got a 10, 12, and 15-year-old. I got a wife 19 years, and none of them know any of this. None of them know any of it. But there's a lot of guilt for 2 reasons, and I think I explained it to you.
Well, let's do this before you go into it, Greg. Take the audience back to 1979.
Oh, fuck.
And walk us into what happened. Tell us what happened. What did you see?
This is a bad idea. It's not a bad idea because, okay, but look, it's going to sound stupid because people that weren't in the 70s, if you weren't there, it's like in the 60s, they had a saying, if you were there and you remember it, you weren't there. But in the 70s, it wasn't like that, man. The 70s were cooler than Christmas, man. We rode bikes. And I used to jump. We had Evel Knievel. His cat broke every bone in his body twice. And it's so scary, man. The whole reason, I don't know anything about this community and the Bigfoot and all this, but there's a sheriff, man. The Sheriff Pilates. He's a former sheriff, and he's finding out that these people are missing. And I think he knows why, and I think I know why, too. But it was 1979. It was Thanksgiving. You got a picture of me. You know my name. You saw what I look like. You see my mom and my sisters. I can only think of yards as like a football field because I live out here by Dallas Cowboys, which means you probably just lost half your audience and half of them will love you forever. But anyway, a football field, this is the David Pilates thing. I bring it up because it's the Devil's Bowl. It was called the Devil's Bowl, like since time out of mind, it just was. We had my dad, he split when I was like 5, but he used to take me to a stock car race called Devil's Bowl Speedway. I mean, I don't even remember where it was, but it was there. And then we, us little bicyclers, whatever, I can't explain it. If you took a football field and you took out the turns and you took out the S's and you straightened it up, as far as the crow flies, it'd be about 250 yards, 300 yards, somewhere in that vicinity. But it's so strange because, like in the Revolutionary War, we knew the creeks, we knew the hills, we knew these trees, we knew where to go. You know it. You grew up here, you knew it. It was in this Devil's Bowl. It was like if you took an egg and just stuck it halfway into the earth. It was hard Texas dirt. And once you broke out of the trail after getting there, it was a big dirt bowl, and there was one way in. It had been paved by so many bikes, man. We had one way in. So messed up, man. There's one way in, and you got your momentum going, and you ride your bike, and you could get it like Evel Knievel, or if you've ever been to a circus or something, these guys with motorcycles they're in a ball, and they can get up on the sides, and that's what you could do, But so many people had these heavy bikes, which I feel terrible about. But in 76, my dad showed up at Christmas and gave me a white Huffy as bicentennial. 76. And I'd take that thing and jump it, man. And anytime you'd see new construction around, there'd sure as hell be a ramp. And before you know, we're flying off of it. Evil Knievel, we had these Evil Knievel toys, and I'd run them off the porch, and you had a helmet, and and that's what we did. We didn't have phones, and this was before Atari even, and Pong, I guess, right about that time. But we didn't have phones, and you could go as long as you wanted, and I was a year ahead of my friends because I just was. Like, I lived on the street, and these two lived here, and these two lived here, and we just had this neighborhood, and it was the 70s, and it was golden. As silly as it was our time. And so we go. And I feel terrible about the words I'm going to use because I don't want to categorize anyone, but there was a over the Thanksgiving weekend, this happened over 4 or 5 days, let's say, we ran into a homeless man. I mean, that's what we called him. To us, he was a homeless guy. And I've thought, man, and I've thought, Wes, and I've thought, and I've played it back and over when I revisit it in my head, and I try to come up with answers. And like I say, I'll talk to you, but I'd like to ask your opinion on some things. And maybe I'm in the right area, or maybe I'm not. But this man was there. All right. So it's 79. I'm 10 years old, but I was tall. I was good. I had strong legs, played soccer all my life. I could get that bike up, man. I just used to jump. We'd come home with skin hanging off. Terrible. It's gone now, but there's one scar I thought it'd have forever, but it had healed up. I didn't think it would. It was gross. Anyway, I'm going there. I just don't want to. I'm going there. Oh man. So we go there. I'm sorry, I got my hands over my eyes. So we go there every day for say a week. And there's I was telling you yesterday, and you helped me make sense of this, and everyone can do the math in their head because I like math. Math is safe. I have a laboratory. I built a lab. I see patients. I have none today, which is so weird. But AB equals C, and then XY equals Z. This thing makes no sense. This thing doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't belong. This fucking abomination doesn't belong. If they know about it and they're not telling you, and there's people getting, that's okay. Anyway, for a week we see this man. He's a veteran. I know he's a veteran because he's living in a tent, but not a fancy camping or glamping or whatever you call it nowadays. He's got a tent, but it's an army tent. I'm talking olive drab like I was in Boy Scouts. I quit Boy Scouts, which sucks because two of the people with me, their dad was a Vietnam vet, and he was our scoutmaster, and so wrong. He used to. I'll get to that part in a minute. So we go down there for a week, right? And we take them food. We're taking them sandwiches. Hey, my mom was single. My dad had split. Had two sisters. She's got a job. All these things. And I didn't have anyone to tell me yes or no. So I did what I did because I was a good kid. I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't doing anything. I was just born. But I took this man food. I took him a lot of food. In the 70s, we had an ice cream store down here. It's still here. Baskin Robbins, like 31 flavors, whatever. In the 70s, you could get it by a big giant brown tin, a big, not a little quart like you walk in there's a freezer. Now, man, in the 70s, you could get them big brown carton tins. I don't know, man, a foot by 2 feet, or I don't know, huge, just big, and they had lids on them. So that's going to play into this when we take it on Thanksgiving Day. But to be real clear, it was daytime. Every day was daytime until the last day. We take this man food, and I just tell you, because this guy wasn't just from Vietnam. I know he had to have been in Korea because he was older. Because I look back, and I'm a student of history. In Vietnam, the average age was, say, 18, 19, and this man had to have been in 54 Korea at some point because he looked like Alan Alda from MASH, but deeper hair, younger. But his fatigues were green and just drab, olive drab, they call it. I've never been in the military. But I know that I took this man, he likes fruit. Like, I remember I asked him, hey, what do you like? You know, he was a nice guy. Okay, I've got to lay this out real clear. You won't understand. When you rolled up into the Devil's Bowl, you're cutting through woods and hundreds of yards of forest. But the trail's open above you, but everything else is trees, which scares the hell out of me because you could get snatched up at any point looking back. But anyway, we get there, and when it opened up to the Devil's Bowl, is black hard-packed Texas dirt, which means that's how the bikes excelled so rapidly around the inner of the circle. But you had about 4 feet, 5 feet, 5.5 feet on either side. But once you if you come into the Devil's Bowl from, say, the south position, which is what I'm going to call it, 6 o'clock, once you spun around it to the north, which is 12 o'clock, it opened up more. You might have had a dozen feet from left to right at the lip of the bowl. And then it was then it was a cascade straight down. There's one way in and one way out, and the other way out is like jumping off a small cliff or something. It was just insane and stupid. And now we lived through the 70s. I have no idea. I saw kids with bicycle helmets nowadays. We didn't have those. I was like, why are you wearing a bike helmet? But it was like, how did I live? You know, why did I get pounced on? Anyway, this man, he liked fruit. We took him food all week long. But every day, I'm trying to do the math on this. I'm trying to reverse engineer this thing. And his tent never moves. His tent, when you pulled in, was at 1 o'clock, let's say, maybe 2. 1 o'clock-ish. His fire, it kept moving. Day one, it's over to the left, which is before the woods came out. And then it gets, next day it's closer. And we're not there at night. Then the next day it's closer. I'm just like, who goes camping and moves a fire? See, I'm trying to do some deductive reasoning on this and come up with why. And I think I know why. I just don't like the answers to the why. But the only stupid question is the one not asked. You know, let's see. And and I've tried real hard in my head after listening to people and things. I don't hear anything. But if these things are mimicking things or birds, I don't know, or people or whatever, I don't know. But there was nothing other than Thanksgiving, man. And in the 70s, everyone came over. The families were there, and we split. It's the only time we went out at night. We went out there for the first time at night. And I had rigged up a little platform in front of my handlebars, and there's 5 people, families. We had turkey legs and ham, and because we're like, hey, we got to take this Thanksgiving. Let's take this. Let's go, because the parents were off doing their thing, and so we boogied. We were gone, man. You know, it's so messed up, man. It's like Stephen King in the 70s, his 50s, or my 70s, and it's just it's messed up. I drove this guy everything delicious, and on the top of the other container, because I can see it, like, without my eyes even being closed, apples, and more bananas, and more oranges, and whatever. We get there, Wes, and I told you there's a small thing. If you listen to your intro, it's really small, but some guy calls 911, and then you hear him going, get, like, get someone out here. But you hear him talking to this thing going, get. Okay, so David pulls up to the left, and I feel so bad because his bike was a big, heavy metal bike, like a heavy weight. It was purple and half blue. It was a Stardust, whatever that was. But it was heavy. It was a terrible bike, man. David pulls up and cuts left. And when I pull up first, you got to realize my friends are behind me. His brother, by the way. And this is a joke, man, sort of like a cosmic joke. But the man comes out. I mean, he pops out, right? Like, I don't know if he's here or not, but I see a big, gigantic fire, and it's the closest to the tent that it's ever been. And it's a big-ass fire, and it's illuminating everything. But you can still see, because this is an open area. You know, we knew where to go. We knew the roads. He comes out, and he's coming at me for the first time. It's weird. For the first time, this is starting to get, well, actually, it's scary immediately. He goes, get. I'll hit the brakes, and he grabs the whole tent and just throws it, man. He just throws it. Then he grabs the other, and he goes, get. But then he looks his head away, And he keeps going, get, but he's not looking at me anymore. He's going, get. And he told me to get, and then he ramped up again. Just get. The food's flying. And he's pitching it like his tongue is Sandy Koufax or whoever plays baseball now. I don't know, but he's throwing, and I look. And in Vietnam, whenever you got in a firefight, you could be bored all day. But these veterans I spoke with, they call it a mad minute. When the shit hit the fan, it hit the fan. Well, it hit the fan, man, because there's a cacophony of metal clinking and chain behind me. I look to the left, and out of the fucking woods comes this thing, man. It's like this is stupid, but it's the only way I can associate it. It's like the Mark V. We had this Japanese import cartoon called the Speed Racer, right? And he had his little brother, Chim Chim, a race car. And he had this little monkey, this chimpanzee ape thing. He stole away in the back of his truck, get in trouble over the planet. I don't know. But if you took his Mach 5 and turned it sideways, man, not freaking head on, Wes. You turn it sideways, you covered it with hair, you took Chim Chim's face and stick it on the middle, and then Frampton comes alive, because I've heard people say things like rock star hair. We didn't have such a thing back then, man. It was stupid. People's hair, they didn't have that kind of thing. But Frampton comes alive. He's got this face, and if you took his face and that hair, it was hairy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't black. The fire made it look like a light brown or something. But the goddamn thing came out of, sorry, God, I'll take that back. The thing came out of the woods. It didn't come out, man. It was in stealth mode. It just, okay. This thing was covered with hair and arms that are twice as long as they should be. The proportions don't work. I don't think your mind can take it. I mean, but I can compartmentalize something and put it away, and it's done, man. It's over. But I did this because I think someone out there is going to hear something. Someone's going to go hunting this weekend, or someone's going to go camping or hiking, or God knows what, and God knows why. Because I have so much guilt. My kids haven't been in the woods, and these people grow up. And I don't want to digress, but man, I just feel terrible about so many things. It comes out. And it's like, this is mine. And I'm playing it back in my head, and I'm knowing in my gut that this thing, from what I can tell in retrospect, must have seen us coming every day for that particular 4 or 5 day period since the man showed up, because it had no qualms. You're about, I heard something breaking a tree, or I heard something cracking something, or not. No, man, this food belongs. It belongs to it. Like I try to tell you, I know people have their feelings or whatever you want to have. You're entitled to it, but no one pays my bills but me. No one's putting food on my table but me. And some things might be nice, but this was an asshole. This fucking thing was an asshole. It came out. It's like. Okay, in this fight or flight or whatever, forget all that, man. I'm frozen, except David's to my left, and he's the only thing in my view besides this thing, this thing, and David's going off the south fucking lip, man. You're crazy. You're just like, I don't know. You could jump off a building with a metal bike. He chose that. He did. He went straight fucking down. At first, like, what?
Well,
what? And then I turned to the right, Wes, and the man's gone. He's gone. He's gone. And when I saw David go, the metal that I heard clanking behind me, they they rolled around. They're gone. I never had a brother growing up. This guy left his brother at the bottom of the Devil's Bowl with this fucking thing, and David goes, and it made me move. I was like, okay, don't look, just don't look. So I kick my rear back, flip it, cut around to the north, and David's down in the fucking bowl, man. Okay. All right, man. Okay. So here's what. All right. I gotta get him. I was a year older than these people. Whenever we played Nerf football at the park or in someone's yard, I was like the guy that we'd go to because I was a year older. If it wasn't fair, I'd call it. If it was fair, I'd call it. You know what I mean? It was just that way. I can't tell you why, but I had a year on him. And I get David. He's his bike's done. But I'm like, don't look, Greg. Just don't look. But I got to because now I'm at the south. It's a 6. This thing's at the 11. And I know where it is. And I'm like, God damn it, don't look. But I got to get David up, and I looked, you know. And the thing, it was built and designed to do something that our minds cannot calculate. When I say a transformer, I mean, these things that can be a truck or something and turn into a robot or something, it moves effortlessly. It defies logic. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So you roll up and you're giving him food, or he's already has the food, but you guys roll up and he's telling you guys.
No. This is on Thanksgiving Day, the day the thing came out. I had 2 big barrels of food for the man, and he just took it and pitched it.
Oh, I got you.
His fire was the closest to the tent it's been. It was huge. First time we'd been out there at night. I just noted that a burnt fire had moved and then moved and then moved gradually closer to his tent. Tent never moved. Fire moved. Why would you camp and move a fire? That's what I'm trying to.
No, I understand.
Reason.
And we come back to that. So you give him so anyway, he takes it.
No, I don't give him shit. He takes it.
Okay.
Get, and he grabs one, and the one with the meat, really, because one had apples and bananas. And I'm just shocked. First of all, like, maybe I'm stupid, but he was a nice fella. He was homeless, maybe, but he never crossed us at all. But he threw the whole thing, and he takes the other one, and I see him pitching it like apples and bananas because this guy liked fruit, you know. And I took him. 5 of us took family. He's throwing food. That's when I looked over, and that's when it came out, and it was like, this is mine.
Yeah.
And that's what the man's telling us to get. But anyway, so I'm grabbing David, and David's crying, and he's the smallest of all of us, and he's got a little white Hank's T-shirt on, you know. And the thing about David and his brother, which is, I think, is hilarious. Like I told you, his dad was a scoutmaster. He was a Vietnam chopper pilot. But the thing that was so bad about it, he became a cop. I'd go there, we'd watch SWAT and Battlestar Galactica and shit. But he'd beat the hell out of them, man. You'd walk by the front of their house, and they'd be getting walloped, and they're fucking crying. They had a sister. You could hear her.
His father would beat this kid.
Everyone got spanked. We all got spanked in the 70s, man. We just did. I mean, shut. But even my dad would show up just to spank me, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn.
Well, let's do this. So you go down. So there's chaos.
Okay,
there's chaos.
Let me get David out of the bowl. So I'm grabbing him, and he's crying, and and I'm pulling him, and his shirt's up, and he curls out on the bowl, and I got him, and I just go. But I told you, I looked. It's important that I finish that because this thing. Something came to me last night because it makes no sense. But someone, I don't know who these experts are or these professionals. I'm sorry, I don't know the names. I haven't looked into it all, but someone said they came up on one sleeping like a baby. I'm trying to think, how can I tell you this without sounding like a complete jackass, which I know I'm failing miserably at, but it happened. A sleeping baby. They said this thing slept like a baby. Well, the only way I can tell you is that it came in like a baby in a way, but when I was grabbing David and I don't look, but I looked, its legs moved up from a baby and its big barrel chest went up halfway, but its freaky arms didn't move because they were 2 times as long as anything in the hair, but it transformed up halfway. And halfway it was as tall as me. And say I'm 5 feet at the time. This thing was healthy and nasty and scary and burning, man. I'm not lying to you. I know I told you this, and all I can say is you got to burn them. You can't shoot them, or if you can, I don't know. I've heard people going with guns and be afraid to use them. You got to burn them and blind them. I heard someone say that they don't like bright lights. And I just guess you got to burn them. And I know it sounds very apocalypse now, but you got to burn them. You got to burn these things. You got to catch them on fire and burn them. That's the only way I would do it. But I haven't been in the woods. I'll tell you once, but my wife signed me up for something. Anyway, so I grabbed David, and I'm just like, go. And he's crying, he's stumbling, and he's hurt. And I'm like, just go. And I'm just like, don't look back, go. This is the last time I looked at it. It's the last time I saw it. And I'm just like, go. And we get out, and he's ripped up. We come out in the arrow across the street. There's a church, and it was a big old empty field. And they're supposed to build a pool there or something. They never did. But it was just a big old field with a church, and they were all there. He left his brother. It was just messed up to me. But I got him out of there. And we got out of there, and
before you go into it, I know you come back and we'll get into when you guys go back.
yeah, exactly. This is like a good time to maybe take a drink of water.
Yeah, no, of course. I want to ask you, can you and I know as you're describing it being Transformer-like, as you and I talked yesterday, I know exactly what you meant. But as
an eyeball, a blink, and that blink, it did something it was designed to do. I was telling you about however they track down this thing's DNA, this Melba Ketchum, and the DNA is a mother, but they have no idea what the male DNA, whatever this was, it was designed to function as like a shark is a predator. You're gonna go chase a Bigfoot? You're gonna go jump in a pool of sharks with blood in the water? You'll be lunch.
Well, let me ask you this.
It's fucking insane. What are people doing, Wes?
Well, let me ask you this. So, did it come out on all fours, or
yes, it came out like a car, but effortless. Like, boom. It was there. It was there. It wasn't there. I didn't see it until the man started throwing food, and it was there. It was just there. And then when I went to the south of the bowl, I saw the legs, and I saw him transform itself up without its hands moving. It's like that's what I'm trying to tell you. Imagine pushing a baby's butt up, and it just has the room to move up, and the legs don't move, and then its chest goes up like in one motion, like a whoop, boom, bam, glide, slide, done. Makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. But it moved. It was designed to do it. It came in, never heard a word the whole week. None of the sound, nothing out of the pocket, out of sorts, nothing. I try to think back. Did I ever hear a sound? No, nothing. Just nothing. And if it did, these things, they mimic people, Wes. You hear people test or say that if they, I don't know, man. I just know the one I saw was an asshole. And maybe, I know people are missing. And this Pilates man, I know he's onto something because people are missing. And I know.
Well, let me ask you this: how far from you?
I'm just telling you, he's missing, man. That's half my guilt, and that man is missing.
Well,
he's gone.
Let's talk about that. So you guys leave, and then
I scramble out of there. Like, thank God he didn't. But I think it hopped on me.
And why did you? Why did you guys come back? Why did you go back, Greg?
It's really bad to say because I like the guy, but I gave him a shirt when I got home, so I had a white T-shirt too. But his bike was missing, man. His bike's at the fucking bottom of the Devil's Bowl, and his dad will beat the hell out of him 10 ways a Sunday without that bike. And no one's going. They're like, no, we're not, no. And I'm like, you got to help me. You got to help me. I know where his bike is. I know right where it's at. And I got to go because his dad's going to, man. If I don't go, this kid's going to get hurt. Oh, shit. So anyway, I had two older kids because no one's going. No one's going to help him. And he's got to help me. We called this thing Grog. Like, I grew up with, like, comic books, and, like, it was fun. Like, just take like, Batman and Superman. And there was this one character, Grog, some gorilla. And we named it Grodd or Grodd. I can't remember for sure, but we don't talk anymore, none of us. But anyway, there were these two kids lived next door, and then next door to me, my sisters had a friend and their brother John, and then the guy in the corner, Greg. They're older than me by a class a couple of years, and they're older than me, but they're on the scene, they're neighbors. And I was out in front of my mom's car, man. It was a 76 Nova, and I got bit. Like, I thought I was bit. I'm like, I just pop up. Like, I remember like this. I'm crying. It bit me, and these fucking assholes come out with a BB gun. They shot me. These assholes shot me, with a BB gun. Dicks. Anyway, I said, look, guys. I go up to him, and I, said, you got to help me. I said, there's a thing out in the woods, man. There's something in the woods. I don't know what it was. But there's something in the woods, and you got to help me because I need your help. because this kid, man, it's not going to be good. You just got to what? You know what? I don't care. I'll tell anybody. I won't tell them what I'm telling you now, but I'll tell my family. I'll tell anyone. I mean, I don't give a damn. Don't go. I mean, please. Anyway, so I convinced them that I need their help. And they're like, this, basically, long story short, that's when we go. And there's his bike at the bottom of the bowl, just like we left it. And what's worse is the man's tent's still there. It's not squished. It's not destroyed. It's not touched. The tent's there, but that man is gone. And that man, that was his house. That was his home. Like anything that man lived in was there. I think it ate him. I think it fucking ate him because I fucking gave him the food, and I think he fed it every day. I think he fed it an apple, or he fed it an orange, or he gave it a banana, or something that I took. And the fire got closer and closer, and I think it ate him. Man, I swear to God, it ate him. It fucked up. I know it ate him, man. It ate him. I just know it. My God, it's nice of you to say it didn't, but I think it did. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Greg. The reason why I don't think it ate him is these things had probably been watching you guys come in, probably down longer than just bringing this guy food, probably on your bikes, probably had been watching him for a long time. And then, I think if it was going to be a stone cold killer, it would have killed him way before you were bringing him food. I think the fact that you were bringing him food really was irrelevant. I think if it was going to kill him, it would have killed him anyway, regardless of the food. That's why I say you can't hold it.
I know. That's generous, and that's kind of you. But in Texas, this thing was eating healthy. I mean, we got rabbits and we got game, man. This thing could have eaten anything, but I think he placated it. That was whilst with the fire move. I think he placated it, and I think it liked what this guy was giving him. These things, you hear him ripping up trees and eating fucking snails and dirt. This thing had a buffet. It came out and was eating off the dirt and the ground. And that's what I'm trying to put together these people. Okay, so Sheriff Pilates, right? There's no question. It begs and to be asked that they find these people missing and their clothes are off and they're folded. And then I hear two things that really disturb me, and I think I've got breadcrumbs or clues as to why. The biggest question, at least in my mind, that is insane is why are there folded clothes? Why are their shoes missing? Okay, well, when I think that this thing, people say, okay, there's this guy. I'm sorry, I don't know the names and I don't know the particulars, but there was a bicyclist, a real hell of a downhill racer, which I kind of associate with because I was here because of a bicycle too. He hears water running and he's stripping his clothes off in the freaking dead of winter. It's cold, evidently. But once his buddies catch up to him, they don't hear water or him being hot and taking clothes off. They hear growling. So these things are infrasound or whatever. I'm just trying to do math from an outside view. If this thing can do that, and by the way, who knows what this thing can do? That one person, that photographer, that Bruce Maccabee guy, whose wife or somebody I saw a video somewhere where this thing comes out of a tree, and I think you had on something at one time it said, hey, look, I can't explain it, but if they can cloak even too or whatever, I don't know. This one didn't give a shit about any of that. This one, like, this is mine, and I'm taking it now. But I'm looking on the peripheral, and I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out why, what, and how. But if they're taking these clothes off, if this thing can make this man get off his bike, which he never did, and strip down, and they take off these shoes all the time. Sheriff Pilates is like, they take off their shoes. You know why I think they do that? Because shoe leather tastes like shit, like dead cow, and they maybe break these trees off and use them for toothpicks because they don't want to eat that. But if they can make you take your clothes off, the people I think are taking their own clothes off and folding them by themselves because they find nothing but bone, Wes. Did I work with teeth, bones, a molar, a bicuspid? They can eat you? Did nothing?
Yeah. No, I hear you.
You do the math. Please tell me what you think because I'm listening. I'm all ears.
Well, I obviously think that sometimes they do take people, and I think sometimes that they do eat people. I don't think they're just godless killing machines. I don't think they're, it's like saying a cougar is a godless killing machine. Yeah, a cougar can take down a full-grown man. Cougars do attack children, get them on the back of the neck and drag them off. But I wouldn't really say they're godless killing machines. I think these things, everything's for a purpose. And I don't know necessarily that they'd kill this guy just to kill him. If he got up and he just took off, I really think he was probably like, I'm done there, man. I'm done. I'm not going back. And that's probably...
He ran for his life. He ran for his life.
And that's probably what happened to him. He probably just left. There's really no reason to run him down. I think if they were truly, if you really think they would have killed this guy, I think they would have got you the next day you came back.
I did go back. I never went back.
I thought you went back to get the bike.
That was it. Just for him. I never went back. I haven't been to the woods. And that's why I feel like such an asshole or guilty, because my kids, 10, 12, 15, all your shows are people. I'm a hunter. I grew up in the woods, and I feel so terrible because I grew up in the woods, and it was a part of encompasses who I am, and I love hunting. I've been in the woods. My kids never seen the woods. My kids have never stepped a pinky toe in the woods because they're all under my roof. And what am I doing? Is that fair to them? Because what happened to me then, is that fair for my kids to never? My wife, man, I swear to God, 2 years ago, she signed me up because my wife is smart. She's not dumb. And she signed my kid up for this trip where all these kids go camping. And then I'm like, no. She goes, oh, no, I volunteered you too. Like, what? They call it a chaperone. So I go. I'm like, what? And then you have to get picked. Well, I get picked. And I'm trying to wrestle with my kid just going. And then I'm picked. And she volunteers me. And I'm going to the woods with kids, like little Vienna sausages. Here you go. I don't know if you know what that is. But a salamander or what are those little fishies? Here, just like take these little kids, toss them into the woods, and come eat them. Here you go. It's a buffet. It's a dirt buffet. This goddamn thing came out and started eating food off the dirt. These kids. Okay, and you know what I did? I told you this already. I know. But I was so wrong with it. Man, this is just wrong. This is going to sound bad, but I didn't care. At dusk, my wife volunteers me, and we're going. We're back we're in the woods, and I'm responsible for these kids. So I got there first, and I took the first bunk by the front door, and I took a loaded 12-gauge shotgun full, and I had ammo in my bag. And if something came in that door, it was going to know it was danced with, because there's nothing else I could do. I was signed up and I was going. But I'm sitting there sleeping with a 12-gauge, Wes, and I won't let my kids go because I know people are getting eaten and they're missing, Wes. Some of those older folks, or not, I hate to say older, shit, I'm old. There's bodies, Wes. They're girls, children, with bites out of them, and a predator. Okay, what's the baddest predator? You ever heard of lion roar? You ever seen, there's a shark. There's something out there in the woods that's every bit as mean, because it is. Are you missing? No, I'm here. I'm here. Who is it? Who can't tell you it ate my stomach up or spit me out? I don't know. I just know it.
Yeah, I think the best thing, though, Greg, is not to live in fear, not to... I know exactly...
Good luck.
Well, I know exactly the way you feel. After my own encounter, I didn't want to go in the woods anymore. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah, you stole one.
Yeah, it's...
And then you came to Texas? I was like, Wes, when we first started this conversation today, what are you doing? Don't come to Texas. Don't. I just don't... I respect everyone's opinion to do what you want, but why?
Well, you can't live in fear with these things.
Yes, you can.
Well, that's true. I refuse to.
I do. I don't even open it. I'm sorry. I'm just scatterbrained.
No, that's all right. That's all right. And I understand the way you feel. I don't want to diminish your feelings, because I definitely get the way you're feeling. And, it's PTSD. This is real PTSD from almost 40 years ago. This is a real, something that's affected you. And I'm really glad that you took the time to come on and talk about it, Greg, because I know you didn't really want to. And, I know it's a terrible...
You should do?
Yeah.
I think you should do, really, because this is, it's not just that it's difficult. It's just that it's scary. Okay. I'm scared to death right now. I think you should take people that are afraid to call, say they're a policeman or somebody who's just damn scared, and you should secondhand. It's just you should give us a secondhand account out of the horse's mouth of some things for people that are too afraid. Because I emailed you. I was wrestling with it. I woke up. If you look at the timestamp on my email to you, I was like, I was like, there's got to be somebody out there that doesn't know and think we can help. And I timestamped. I woke up and said, fuck it. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And then a day goes by or something. I sent you what I sent you. And I was like, oh, good. He's busy. He's not going to call. Thank God. And then you called. And we spoke, and I consider you close to me because you're closer than my wife and my kids and whoever else might be on the line. I don't think about them. I'm talking to you, Wes. This is you and me. I'm in my car, and you're where you're at, and I'm in the central time zone, and you're whatever time zone you're at. I'm sorry.
Right.
I did it. I regretted it instantly, and then you called. I was like, shit. But I'm a Texan, man. If I don't say something, if I don't tell you what I saw, then who's going to help? Why would it happen? What good can come of something that has no good in it? Maybe someone. Don't be last in line. Don't be first in line. If you're going to walk into a meat grinder, there's actually no place in line. But what Sheriff Pilates say? If you're last, just don't be alone, man. If you come to Texas, don't be alone. I mean, be alone. But God damn it, get a flame. I mean, I can't even a flamethrower. I'll go to the woods. I'll take big bright lights because some of these people you visit with, these experts say it hurts your eyes. I think they can see at night. I think they can see just fine at night. But it didn't like that fire. It stayed on the outskirts, but it came right out because the man threw the food over there. So it came out, but I said it was lit up. I saw everything. It's a big monster. But it ate. I think it ate that man. I swear to God, I'm never going to get over that.
Yeah. Well, you can't hold yourself the guilt of it, though, Craig, is what I'm trying to say is if it was going to
Where else are you going to go? He can't go get a Holiday Inn, Wes.
Well, no. What I'm saying is if it was going to get that man, trust me, it would have gotten him regardless.
What if it did get him? What if it did? We can't go check.
Yeah.
He's not listed. Their Sheriff Pilates can't even get missing people reports from public parks where people are taking their children. Not me.
Yeah.
And what asshole am I? Because I'm not taking my kids camping. What a dick. This fucking thing, Wes, I want to burn it. You got to burn them. You got to burn them. The only way I think you can kill it is you got to burn them. You got to burn them. You got to burn them. You blind them and burn them. You got to burn them. That's insane.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand the way you feel. Like I said, I felt that way for the longest time. I thought kill them all and let God figure it out.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I don't think that they're all that way, though. No,
they're not all assholes, but some of them are. These rogue ones, they say some of them, people seen them busted up. Say one's missing an eye or an arm.
Yeah.
Say these people, say these things or whatever. Say you want to attribute half of a DNA strand to it, say the woman's side, whatever. Say you want to attribute some human characteristic to something that has got a particular humanity component to it. It'd be the word. It'd be cannibal. It'd be cannibal. I think these things were here before we discovered America, because these things have a long track record. I think they come out of the ground because this thing was built to be on its belly on the dirt. You feel like I shine looking up 8 feet tall. No, look at the ground. If you go out in the dark, whoever's listening to this, if you go out at night, you're in the woods, look down. Don't just look down, because it can be on its like a spider, man, like The Thing. I was telling you about The Thing, John Carpenter, back in, I don't know. He made a movie called The Thing, and there's his head, and these spider legs are poking out of it, and it's in this guy. It's the greatest scene ever in film. I swear he goes, you got to be effing kidding me. And they burn it.
Is that the way it moved? Kind of like what you talked about?
Yeah, that's exactly how it moved, but its legs were twice as long. Its width, yeah, but put 10 heads instead of one and drive it over there. It crawls. It crawls, man. It crawls. It's not like you're going to knock down a tree. It crawls like a spider monkey. I don't even know what a spider monkey is, but it's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
I don't have the words. I don't have the vocabulary, man. I don't even want to see it anymore. That's why I'm so glad. Someone's got to be careful. I don't know who.
Yeah, I think
one person somewhere. I don't know who and I don't know where, but it's just not safe, and I'm scared to death, man.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good advice what you said. Don't go alone. You never know what you're going to quite run into, and it's life altering to run into these things. I can hear it in your voice. I mean, I know exactly the way you feel.
Well, tell me, what do you think about that thing that crawled down? The lady goes, did you see that? Did you see that? What is that? It's cloaked. What the hell is it? These people that are missing are missing. They're not coming back. Families are ruined. They're destroyed. I have kids. I don't want to miss them. I'm doing what I can. But tell me, what is it?
I'm not
Tell me
sure.
what it was. You saw that? It came out of that tree and hooked them. You know what I'm talking about?
Say that one more time.
That thing, it's like cloaked, like predator, and it jumps out of the tree. And the woman's like, "Did you see that? Look at that." I heard you say something. You said like, "Look, I know this lady, and I don't mean to be mean, but you're like, she's not going to forensically alter some kind of video." That thing, whatever it was, it swooped down.
Yeah, for the audience, Barb Shoop is her name. And she filmed what looked like it looks like a Predator. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Everyone knows the Predator movie, but it's kind of see through, but it's not really see through. Well, she filmed it, and I don't know if people are calling her a hoaxer or not, but there's no way that she has the technology to fake that. I just don't buy it. If she's,
I'm in your camp with you. I feel the same way.
But is that Sasquatch? That's the thing. Is that really Sasquatch, or did she run into something else? And so
maybe that's why maybe Sheriff Pilates won't tell you what it is, because maybe whatever the male component is to this stuff, say we have DNA research to this 2018. We don't know what the male component is, as far as if you believe the DNA, and I do. I do. There's a human aspect. Some have hair, some don't. They're big. And some are assholes. I don't want to be wrong either. I don't want to sound like a jerk off. Some of them might be nice. They might even not eat you. Some are assholes. I met an asshole. You go meet another one, and he might give you a piggyback ride. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one eat? As other people I've heard, I saw one smash something against a tree. Forget hunting. It's goddamn crazy. I'm sorry, God. I am not going. Ever. I don't care. Unless I got a flamethrower, because you burn them, Wes. You got to burn them. You got to burn them. That's all I know. Oh.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Greg, and I understand the way you feel. I mean, there was a time where I felt the same way, kill them all, let God figure it out. And it really is PTSD. I'm so glad that you came on the show to talk about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I consider it a kindness. Thanks a lot, man.
No, and I really
appreciate that. I'm grateful to you. Thanks. And take out whatever, use what you can. But no, and by the way, I consider you a friend and grateful to you. And it's gone, for as far as I'm concerned, man, is going back.
Welcome. I've been admiring the show for years, and I'm honored to be a guest.
No, the honor was mine. Thank you again for being here, Chris. And I know you wrote a book, Next of Kin, Next Door, How to Find a Sasquatch, a Stone's Throw Away, and it's actually up on Amazon. Christopher Noel, if you get a chance, go out on there on Amazon and check it out. I've been reading it. It's actually a pretty good book. Chris, what compelled you to write this book?
Well, I've been writing books about Sasquatch for the last 10 years, and every different step I get to with my own apprenticeship with the species, learning more about them, I kind of put it into the form of a book to help me gather my thoughts and to hope to contribute to the conversation that we're all having about the species. And this time around, it was kind of a lucky break. My daughter was exploring this forest behind my mother's house, which is here in Montpelier, Vermont, and she would go and spend time in the winter time a year ago in this forest, and Sometimes I would go with her, but it didn't seem to be a remarkable forest. But then as soon as the snow melted in the springtime, I went back there and I suddenly began to notice all of these structures. And I'm not one of those people who sees structures everywhere, even when they're not there. I videotaped 30 minutes of going through identifying all these different kinds, teepees and huge upside down trees and all sorts of stuff back there. And I said, "Holy smokes, this is incredible! This is between two neighborhoods. It's maybe 6 acres of forest back there, and it's kind of naturally protected from the neighborhoods. Nobody can see into this forest from where they are because the houses are behind trees on all sides. But that kind of went together with all sorts of learning that I'm doing from other researchers, many of whom are finding evidence of Sasquatch and recording audio very, very close to cities and suburbs and small towns. In my case, it's a small city here. And I just have been, it's just kind of come together for me that they operate much more nearby our civilization than anyone thought possible. You know, the kind of conventional wisdom is that they're off in the wilderness and they might come close by on occasion. But what I and others are finding is that they're not here all the time, of course, but that they range through forests that are nearby, like microforests and green belts and ravines and river corridors. And so I began to assemble material about this for the new book and decided to call it Next of Kin, Next Door, just to emphasize the fact that they, in my mind, are our next of kin. It's not the chimpanzees. Sasquatch is a whole lot closer to us than chimpanzees are. And the fact that they're right next door a lot of the time. I later put an audio recorder down in this microforest behind my mother's house, and in one 6-hour period on the first night, last May, I had 2 tree pushes all the way down, a whoo sound that wasn't an owl, and a knock and a very clear, very powerful branch break. I mean, a limb break. And there was no wind on that night. And so that showed me that pretty likely they were around there that night. And so this book is about this. I think we need a revolution in our approach because people, as I say, more and more of a consensus is beginning to emerge that they are right next to us, and we don't know why they would do that when they have all this wilderness to work with, and certainly they live in the wilderness too. But the realization I'm having that really blew my mind during this last year is that they're in the wilderness, and they're also, some of them spend a lot of time right up next to our civilization. And it could be that they are kind of seeing our constructions and our culture and our lifestyle, our vehicles and machines, and they want to kind of offer up theirs right on the other side of the boundary. So they build their structures there, and they say, "This is us. That's you." They're like defining themselves over against us and how we define ourselves. And it may be that the sheer kinship between our species kind of is magnetic for them, as it is for us when we try to seek them. But there could be all sorts of other reasons. I don't want to just meander, but
no, you're doing.
I'll stop myself. I don't want to just like lose track of what your original question was. What compelled me to write this book? Well,
and I tend to agree with you. I mean, going off witness reports, I will concur with you on it. I think that they are living closer to us as humans than most people realize. I think the thought process that you got to go 50 miles into the forest to find them is dead. Because if you look at most reports that I have on the show and you Google map them, it's not far from cities. I mean, it's not far from small towns. It's really, really close. What's your take? Why do you think that is? Why wouldn't they just go live 50 miles out in the forest? I know it's not a question you can really answer, but if you would take a shot at it for me, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, as I just mentioned, I think it's partly that there's this incredible kinship between our two species. I think they are a fellow species of human. I've never heard any very persuasive evidence, any persuasive debunking of Melba Ketchum's study. I know that that's what do you call, a polarizing subject, but I've found no reason to disbelieve the fact that not only she but others have gotten human readings on the mitochondrial DNA of hair samples and tissue samples and blood and saliva. And the mitochondrial DNA goes back to the mother, the ancestral mother, and her mother, and her mother, and her mother goes back and back and back, and that has come back human. Besides Ketchum, lots of other researchers have tested hair. Even when they've known how to decontaminate it, they still come up with human on the mitochondrial side. And so that makes it easy for skeptics to say, oh, it must have been contaminated. But it's happened over and over and over. And Melba Ketchum is a forensic geneticist and knows full well how to wash the samples before testing them, before sequencing them. And she, too, got human sequences for the maternal side. And so, but the part of the DNA in the nucleus of the cell is not recognizable as human. So the idea is that back in the day, at some points, some thousands of years ago, there was a crossbreeding between female humans and another primate, so far unidentified, probably in the genus Homo with us. So if that's the case, and that's the theory I'm working on until something else comes along that proves that invalid. If that's the case, then they are our fellow humans, a different species of human, a wild human.
Well, and going off that, but I don't mean to cut you off, but going off that.
No, please.
And I'll agree with you to a certain point. Wouldn't you agree with me to a certain point that there is a very animalistic side to them? Not necessarily human. They do have very human-like behaviors sometimes, and I've talked to some witnesses that have seen them, and they'll say it looked very human-like in the face, and I'll concur with all of that. But you also have to admit there is an animal side to them. It's not just a simple human living out there. Would you agree with that? I mean, you don't have to agree with me.
Yeah, no, I didn't say. I said in the beginning it was a hybrid between human and another species. So that would be your animal side. They're a hybrid. They're not just like us.
Yeah, and I would tend to
They were originally half, if this is the case, then they were originally half human and half a different primate, which was probably less civilized. I mean, you could argue that we're not civilized, but probably more animalistic than we were at that point. And then, so originally they were 50-50, but mostly since then, Sasquatch has reproduced with its own kind. So that would make the human aspect diminish over the centuries and millennia, and the animalistic side kind of grow larger and more prominent in their behavior profile. So that's why they would have qualities of both human and this non-human.
And I know the audience is probably screaming at me right now, but I tend to agree with you, Chris. I mean, I honestly do. I tend to agree with you. I mean, there is a side to them. There is somewhat of a humanity in them sometimes. And sometimes
that's why people, when they get them in their rifle scopes, they rarely pull the trigger because they see that they're human and they can't do it. I mean, they're not thoroughly human, but they have our blood running through their veins. Let's just put it that way. And there's some, as you know very well, there's, from all your excellent interviews of eyewitnesses, there's some that look very human and there's some that look much less human. So there's almost definitely different species. I mean, different, at least breeds of them or strains of them, maybe even different subspecies. We just don't know enough yet to say what they would be. So I think that they're drawn to us as to fellow family members, and we're drawn to them. That's why you and I are fascinated by the species, and why hundreds and thousands of other people are also. So, but another possibility, I've noticed that over the years, a lot of researchers have found activity and structures and heard knocks and whoops very near electrical power lines, and also other sources of electricity like substations, and more I'm hearing it near solar power installations. So I think there's something about electricity, and I don't know what it is, that may draw them to civilization as well. I have this theory that when people talk about getting zapped and having their electronics all messed up, it's not infrasound, as most people think, but it's some electromagnetic field that they are able to put out there, to emanate, because sound waves, infrasound does not mess up electronics. And, you know, the Bigfoot curse is so many people find that their batteries are suddenly drained, or, you know, their equipment just doesn't work. It goes haywire for a while when they are in the presence of Sasquatch. They're hearing them and maybe catching glimpses of them, and they're trying to use their cameras, and their cameras suddenly freeze up. You know, sound waves don't do that, but electromagnetic fields do that. And a lot of people feel the hair on the back of their neck or on their arms stand up, and sound waves don't do that either. But electricity, you know, we've felt that in the case of static electricity, but I don't know what kind of electricity this would be, but it seems that they're able to use electricity somehow. And there are certain human beings that are called electric people that when they get in an agitated state, an emotionally heightened state, like light bulbs will suddenly explode or just become fried. I think there's something like that they're doing. If they have an electromagnetic aspect to them, then it would make sense that they would be drawn to human sources of electromagnetism, like power lines, and that's a very familiar theme in research, is people finding Sasquatch signs near what do you call it? Power line cuts through the forest, or corridors, power line corridors.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if infrasound would actually take out other electronics. I don't know that much about infrasound to speak intelligently about it, but that's a good point. You know, if it can't do that, then there has to be another explanation. And, you know, who knows what these things are? I mean, we could say half human, half something else, but, you know, Chris, you're a well-educated man. I mean, for your average listener listening to that, they're going to go, oh, come on, you know. But I tend to agree with you on a lot of that. I mean, it's hard to say you're wrong. I mean, obviously no one can say anyone's wrong because no one has a body. But one of the things a lot of witnesses will say is they'll say it looked like a half man, half ape. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Half man, half ape.
Or Chewbacca.
Or Chewbacca, or that sort of thing. Yeah. Interesting theories. How long have you been looking into this, Chris?
Just about 12 years. Since I went on my first BFRO expedition and realized that you could actually pursue learning about this species, and you didn't just have to wait for a lucky break, you know, like one crossing the road in front of you or something. You can actually, you know, take steps to learn more and to gather evidence and to, you know, educate yourself out in the field and by conversation with other researchers. And then I just I caught the bug, and sort of transformed my life since then. And I'm very poor, but I'm very happy.
Yeah, and I want to talk about a little bit about your property, but for the listener listening, next of kin, next door, how to find a Sasquatch, a stone's throw away. What's the one thing after they read this? What's the one thing they'll walk away from for the people listening that might purchase a book?
Well, I would think different people will walk away with different things that they find most interesting, but I have a section on case studies of people finding evidence of them very close by, myself and 9 other people, and then I have a section about why I think they act the way they do, what kind of qualities they share with certain kinds of our own species. And I have a section about people who are able to have interactions with them, including especially this woman in Ohio who posts under Snow White Bigfoot. And she, for years now, has been having very elaborate object communications back and forth. Because, see, the thing about Sasquatch is, as you probably know, I'm sure you do, and many of our listeners know, they don't interact with people directly. They do it indirectly. You know, they'll hit the side of the house at 3 a.m, but they don't hang around to put their heads together with you and talk and discuss matters. Everything is a glancing kind of overture, and she has been able to leave all sorts of interesting objects out on her back porch, and she'll find the next day or 2 days later that they've been rearranged in very precise ways, or that new objects have been brought in and other objects have been taken away. And there's a great orderliness to this behavior. They line things up very precisely. They're very controlled. They're kind of like the opposite of monsters. A lot of people think of them as monsters, but in fact, they're back and forth in this game that they've played with her and with many other habituators, actually, in their own way. They make very precise moves. It's like a chess game. It's very precise. There's nothing haphazard about it. And so, like, increasingly, not only are they not out in the wilderness all the time, they're close by, they're also not monsters. They're like, it's a thinking man's relationship. You know, it's like playing with a chess grandmaster. So I have a whole section about those relationships in the book, and then I have a section on the possible electrical connection that I was just mentioning, all sorts of material about that. And then in the last section of the book, I have some speculations about how a new kind of anthropology could be formed to be able to study this species, because we've been, frankly, spinning our wheels as a field for the last 50 years. We've never gotten better footage than the Patterson film, and we've never, all the persuasive and compelling eyewitness accounts, many of which you've had on your show, are wonderful, but they don't tend to teach us more. The first 100 of those accounts taught us a lot, and then the next 1,000 pretty much repeat what we already knew, because they tend to behave in a very limited array of actions in our presence. And so I think we need a new kind of access, and so video surveillance and observation is not going to work. If we've learned anything, I think we've learned that. And so the traditional kinds of anthropology methods that have been used studying human cultures aren't going to work with this culture, because they won't let us apply those methods. So I think that better and more widely deployed audio is the best bet, because they don't seem to mind being audio recorded. Or if they mind it like 5% as much as they mind video. So I think that the only way to make progress is to be able to not only find structures in our local forests, but also to put microphones and audio recorders out with much more deliberate kind of research intensity than we have, so that we can gather proof positive that these structures indicate the fact that Sasquatch spend time here, and then we can hear what they're doing, maybe pick up language, maybe begin to put together a sense of what they do when we're not, when they're, what am I saying? What they do when they're on their own and they're not afraid of us, and they're not reacting to our observation, and they're not trying to hide, but they're going about their business. And anyway, so the last section of the book is all about what this new anthropology could look like. That has to be very different from traditional anthropology.
No.
So,
don't you find that odd, though?
Also, I call for. Sorry, just one more thing. I thought of is I make a call in the book for people to contribute material about their own local Sasquatch groups so that I can keep adding that material to the book. Because with the publisher that I'm working with, CreateSpace, you can just upload extra material, and it's available the next day on Amazon. So I'm looking for people to contribute, and if they have reason to believe that there are Sasquatch near them and they live near town or near a city or in a suburb or not too far from civilization in some sense, they can write to me at nextofkinnextdoor@gmail.com.
Don't you find it a little odd, that they won't get in front of a camera or get in front of, it's like once people have them around their home and they're like, how do I make this thing go away? And I'll be like, put up a security system.
Put up cameras, I know.
And the moment they do, doesn't that make you stop and kind of take a few steps back and go, what are we dealing with here? What is this thing really?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, let's go with the theory. It's a half animal, half human. I feel like I could trick a human to where they would never see my camera, and even around the home, it seems like you'd be able to, even dumb animals go in front of, I'm not saying Sasquatch is a dumb animal, but you can practically capture just about anything on a trail cam except for these things. And why is it when you put up cameras around your home, why is it they go away? Or why is it that when you start putting up trail cameras, even around your property, all of a sudden activity dies down? For me, that makes me stop and just take a step back and go, what are we chasing? What is this thing?
Well, I have a couple of theories about that. One of them is that when you mention the T word or telepathy or mind speak, people start to say, oh, you're in the woo camp. But I think telepathy is a natural ability because some people seem to have it. I've been convinced that it's an actual phenomenon, a natural phenomenon. And because I've had experiences, I'm not able to do it, but I've been with a person who was in communication with her local Sasquatch, an individual, and she was able to send it a thought, and then we would hear a knock 10 seconds later from the 100 feet in the woods. I think they can do telepathy, and I think that it's not just reading a person's mind, but I think it's reading objects, the intention in objects. I think that's how they, perhaps how they can feel out the presence of cameras. Also, if cameras have electricity, are giving off an electromagnetic field, if they're as sensitive to electromagnetism as I was suggesting earlier, these cameras would just kind of light up like a beacon for them in terms of their reception of electromagnetic fields.
Well, doesn't that make you stop even more and go, what are we chasing? I mean, cameras aside, just what you said, doesn't that worry you a little bit?
No, as I said, there are people who have this electric stuff going on. It's some kind of, science doesn't understand it yet, but that doesn't mean that it's, supernatural or extraterrestrial or something.
I gotcha.
There are people, as I say, that can that are able to store an electric charge and then give it off. There are people who you can't touch their hands because you get a shock. Listeners can look on YouTube. This phenomenon is called electric people. It's also called, what is that? It's something about streetlights. People can affect streetlights when they walk underneath them. Some can. So I forget there's an acronym for those kinds of people. And so I just think that it's possible that Sasquatch has an ability in that realm, and it doesn't mean it's supernatural. Lightning was thought to be supernatural before science figured out what it was. There are things called lightning balls or ball lightning that are perfectly natural, but we haven't figured out how they form yet. But that doesn't mean that they're supernatural. So
I get you. I'm not trying to break your balls or anything. I'm just kind of get your mindset of where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're sharing it. There's a lot of things I think, I've put aside the whole woo and flute player thing. I think all of us can learn from each other, and whether we agree or disagree is kind of irrelevant until someone has, I know you're not into having one killed. I know you're against it, but until let's say it's proven, let's use those words, no one really knows. And so I think it's important to kind of hear everyone out, hear everyone's theories. And we all love the subject. It's a mystery and we're all trying to solve it. And it just amazes me that people can't come together and have conversations like you and I are, Chris. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm breaking your balls. I'm really not. I'm just kind of trying to get where you're coming from. And I need to look up that electric people. That sounds kind of cool. I'll have to check that out on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a mystery to science, but it's very well documented that these people are out there. And yeah, I think feel very lucky and privileged to be able to just contribute to this conversation. And you and your show provide a very important channel for that discussion going on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your property too as well. Would you tell us about any encounters you've had? I know you've had a lot of audio. If people get a chance, go to YouTube and look up Impossible Visits. Chris does a great job the way he puts together his videos, but you've captured some pretty good sounds. I posted one a couple weeks ago, I think right as I was getting sick, and I listened to it and I was like, holy crap, man. It sounded like, it walked in, kind of huffed and exited, and I was really impressed by the audio. So if the listeners are out there, go to YouTube, type in Impossible Visits, check out Chris's channel. Tell us about
my channel is called Impossible Visits. That recording that you're referring to is a video called Just How Heavy Are Sasquatch Footsteps? And that was a couple weeks ago, and I was impressed too. That was the best footsteps I've ever recorded. It was in the trail behind my house. A place where I've left food and had it taken, and where there's lots of structures. And so I left this recorder, just a recorder, and I don't try to hide them because I know that they know that they're there. I used to put black tape over the lights and, stick it under the moss and stuff like that, but I don't do that anymore. I just plunk it down on the ground, and at 3:54 in the morning, you hear this thing coming along and breathing heavily, and then it stops and breathes right at the recorder, and then before it gets to the recorder, you can't 100% tell that it's bipedal or not. But when it leaves, it very heavily goes boom, 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 and it was exciting to me to find that on my recorder that next morning. Well, I have a property that has had sporadic activity over the years. One time, I had my car antenna bent over at an extreme angle and tucked in place, lodged in place between the side mirror and where the side mirror attaches to the car. There's like a little notch there, and it was notched in there, and I couldn't believe it. And then I really had to laugh when I realized that it's a perfect replica of a tree bend, and it was with my car antenna. I've had knocking on the outside of my house in the middle of the night, but it's a lot less frequent for me than it is for instance, the woman in Ohio that I mentioned. That's all written about at length in the book, and lots of other people at habituation sites that have much more consistent activity. Mine is not a good example, but 2 miles from my house is a ravine where in 2014. I recorded just many hours of it. It was the craziest, most fortunate situation, and it too taught me that they're just about everywhere, or there's sometimes that their range is just about everywhere where there's good habitat. Because this is right next to a town of 700 people, a mile, just not even a mile, right next to that town. And I would go there in the mornings, and this one individual would knock at the other side of a thick screen of trees. I couldn't have a hope of catching a glimpse. But for 21 mornings in a row that I would go, I wouldn't go every day if it was raining or something where you can't hear very well or too windy or something. If it was a good weather, I would go. And 21 times in a row when I went there, the drumming would be on the other side of the trees. And I document this in, what's it called? It's called Morning Visits 2014. And not only did I have that drumming, I started calling that Sasquatch Music Man because he was a drummer. He's just a drummer on the other side there. It was incredible. And I could knock and he would respond instantly, and it was just like a conversation. It makes you think we're on the verge of a breakthrough. But of course, it never does quite get over that finish line into contact. You're always at some kind of remove, and it's always indirect, as I was saying. But also from the other direction, I had like a ton of pine cones, not the fluffy ones that people may be thinking, but the green, really dense green, they're like not ripe. That wouldn't apply to pine cones, but you know what I mean. They were really heavy and dense, and I saw them rising up into the air behind another screen of trees, up into the sky. They would arc up and land on at the tree right next to me. And
you even had I don't mean to cut you off, but you even had a tree pushed over next to you when you were out there, weren't you? Was that?
Well, that was a slightly different place, but yeah, I was sleeping on a mountain behind a woman's house who contacted me and said she heard wood knocks for years on that mountain and didn't know what they were. And I said, "Oh, I know what they are." I filled her in, and she was amazed, and she let me sleep up there. And I was in a dead sleep, and I had a tree come down 6.5 feet from me, exactly parallel to me, and it was a big, thick tree. And if it had come across me, I don't know what would have happened to my poor little body. And it was right next to me, and it was pitch dark, so I couldn't see anything whatsoever. And I you know how you second guess yourself, so I thought, well, the recorder will probably pick up that it was like a bear that climbed up that, or a raccoon or something heavy, and that the tree was rotten and stuff. Well, on the audio recording, not only was the tree not rotten, because you could hear like crack, crack, like very being pushed against great resistance inside the tree. But 5 minutes before it happened, you hear pounding on the turf nearby, like it's trying to wake me up or something, trying to get a rise out of me. And you can hear me snoring and not responding to it. And then the tree starts crack, crack, and then bang. And nowhere on the audio is anything climbing up the tree. It's not a bear. The audio recorder was right next to me, which was right next to the tree, so it was very sensitive, and it would have heard anything climbing up the tree. So it was pushed over. It was a perfectly still night, and of the 500 trees that were in my immediate area, just this one right next to me came down. So
yeah, I remember that video. I remember thinking, this guy's insane. And then
kind of, in retrospect, it was insane because I didn't make any move to leave the area. I just went back to sleep because the car was about a mile and a half away, and it was pitch dark, and I didn't want to try to find my way back. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, and then I love in the video, you're like, yeah, last night, I mean, you're so calm during the whole thing. You're like, yeah, I had a tree pushed over, and,
yeah, I know.
And I'm sitting there thinking.
People remember. Yeah, that was crazy.
I remember thinking, this guy's insane, man. This guy's completely insane. But
that was one of my favorite things. My mother, bless her heart, she just doesn't understand. Like, even when I was getting pelted with pine cones, and you'll see on the video if you watch it, anyone, I say, can you hit me? Can you try to hit me directly? And this thing's like 150 feet away where I saw them rise up from behind the trees. And within 3 minutes, one hit me plunk right on the head. And I laugh for the camera. I'm happy, so happy and thrilled. And she's like, how could you be thrilled by that? And I said, you don't understand. You just don't understand. This is like a peak experience. And so the next year, 2015, there wasn't so much drumming anymore because I tried to put a hidden camera, and that ruined the whole damn thing. But I did. That's when I got 4 seconds of this juvenile standing behind a pine tree. And of course, as always happens, I didn't realize it in the real time, only when I saw the footage. And you can see that on Morning Visits Juvenile Sasquatch. Yeah, on YouTube on Impossible Visits. If you're interested in looking at that, you'll see whether you think I'm right that it's a juvenile Sasquatch. And it was a crazy experience because a coyote was involved. When I first walked in, this coyote howled right up above me on the ridge, and then it came down and stood in front of me, like 60 feet in front of me, just a single coyote coming toward me, standing there looking at me. And I was so focused on the coyote that I didn't notice the juvenile Sasquatch, and it seemed as though the coyote was working to distract me. It was bizarre. I have no idea how that would work unless there's telepathy involved between in collaboration between Sasquatch and other animals. Could be possible, but even so, I don't believe in invisibility and portals and spaceships and stuff. So I think of myself as a naturalist, having a naturalistic stance, even though many people would think that telepathy is cuckoo. I don't
understand.
agree.
No, I understand where you're coming from. There's a lot in this world that we just don't know. There's a lot about us that we don't know, as far as our abilities and everything else. I think, and I've said it before on past shows, but I think as we've come down history, I think we're a dumber version of what we used to be. I don't buy into the whole caveman nonsense that they try, evolutionists and scientists will try and cram down your throat. I just have a hard time believing that. And you could look at a lot of things to prove that I'm right. Tell us about that thermal. You got a thermal, you said, in Texas? I know I've seen it.
Yeah, that was another peak experience in my researching life here. There was a really active habituation site in East Texas, and one night, that's actually how I decided that telepathy was real. I was about to leave after staying for 5 days with this friend of mine on this house, and it was the morning, and we were having a final cup of tea, and I was about to drive out to the airport, and it was during the heat wave of 2011, and it was 100 degrees every day, and we would sit outside in the day, and we didn't hear any wood knocks all that time in the day. At night we would, but not in the daytime. So here I was in the final morning, and I was about to leave for the airport, and I said, could you ask, because this friend was in mental touch, if you believe it, and it's true, with one female Sasquatch, and I said, could you ask her to make a goodbye sound for me, because I'm about to leave? And she got this sort of communicative look in her eyes, and she said, okay. She says to wait. And I said, oh, okay, well, it's never going to happen. And I swear to you, Wes, within 10 seconds, we hear bang, knock from inside the woods, like 150 feet away. And as I say, we hadn't heard a single knock like in 25 hours of sitting outside during the heat wave. Anyway, and that was just a culmination of many other pieces of evidence that I could tell you about if you wanted, that made me realize that indeed it can't be explained, but telepathy is real, and Sasquatch seem to be more adept at it than most of us. But anyway, that's a side note. Where I got the thermal footage was at the same place. One night we had a bonfire going. This was a different time of year, so it was chillier. And we had a big bonfire going, and she and I and her daughter and her daughter's friend were roasting marshmallows at this fire and talking and having a good time and messing around. And every now and then I would go outside the firelight and I would scan the tree line with my thermal camera. And at one point I saw a horizontal bar of light, heat, down near the ground, but I was looking for something upright, hiding behind a tree, so I didn't really pay attention to it. I remember thinking, well, it's probably a rock that retained the heat of the day, and now it's showing still light in the thermal. And it wasn't until I got back home to Vermont, and looked through this that I realized, holy shit, that's a hand at the end of this bar, and that bar is an arm. And this thing is crouched behind the woodpile that was over at the edge of the woods. And adjusting the contrast a little, I could suddenly see two huge eyes looking out through this gap in the woodpile. And the hand flexes 3 different times, and it's very, very clear. And if you want to take a look at this, it's called Woodpile Sasquatch on YouTube. So that was thrilling.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. It was pretty good footage, actually. I'll definitely have to have you back, Chris. But for the audience out there, it's called Next of Kin, Next Door, How to Find a Sasquatch, a Stone's Throw Away by Christopher Noel. It's up on Amazon, and definitely check out his YouTube channel, Impossible Visits. I've started reading the book, Chris. I know I told you I'd finish it, but I actually am really enjoying it. It's very well written. It's very well put together, and it's a fascinating read. So I hope people go out there.
Thank you, Wes.
Yeah, I hope people go out there and get it. But thank you, Chris. Thank you for taking the time to come on, man. I've always wanted to talk to you. So thank you so much. And
well, that makes 2 of us. So I'm glad we finally got it together.